Gives it to Jenkins for the championship. Yes! The national champions.
Hey everybody, welcome to Three the Hard Way Sports Podcast. I'm Bryan Galloway here from Rumson, New Jersey, and I won't say anything about binge watching RuPaul or anything like that this week. we have Alex Shanley. How are you, Alex?
I'm great, ready to talk of the madness of March. So, get ready, folks. You're going to get an earful on college basketball tonight. So.
And yes, and then definitely from our preview last week, we did say we were going to talk about the March Madness, which is historically one of our craziest times to talk about it because we used to spend so many hours sitting at the lunch table and
Right.
breakfast table and the bagel Fridays talking about this. So we also have from Parts Unknown, a big fan of Rick Barnes. We have Michael Pipersek. How are you, Michael?
I'm great because it's the most wonderful time of the year. I love this tournament, and I can't wait to get into this conversation because I do my bracket in pencil because it's such a mess when I look at it.
Should we rename it instead of March Madness the Rick Barnes Classic?
Yes, assuming that he does what he does best. Yes.
All right, got it.
That's kind of a teaser for my bracket, I think.
It was not easy, just going through, just because there's so much parity back in college basketball. Because the one and dones and the AAUs and the G leagues and how it's changed college basketball. The transfer portal. Yeah. There's kids that have transferred already.
I know, which I don't understand that.
The season just ended. The bunch of teams said no to the NIT because kids were going in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
See, so here's my thing. Something's wrong with the NCAA right now. They got to go back, and this is ruining the sport. And even their selections. And here we are talking the Virginia debacle. The teams that were left out of the field of 64, especially the Big East. It bothers me. There's something wrong there, guys. There's no way possible only 3 teams from the Big East should have come out. That's a strong division. They had strong wins. I don't understand. Seton Hall was robbed. St. John's was robbed. Pittsburgh was robbed. There's teams that should have been in here that were not. But if you saw that Virginia game, that was an unwatchable college basketball game. Unwatchable. Everybody had to take it off, turn it off in 20 minutes? That's not what they want. They have to do a better job.
The Big East
do a better job.
The Big East has a contract with Fox. CBS runs March Madness. The Mountain West has a contract with CBS. Mountain West got 6 teams in. Big East got 3. I mean, if you follow the money, unfortunately that's what it is. But I agree. I don't think Virginia should have been in. I don't think 6 Mountain West teams should have gotten in, but I have an East Coast bias, but we'll see, we'll see how it works out.
The funny thing about what happened in the Big East is the Big East was viewed good enough to have UConn as the number 1 overall seed, Marquette as a 2 seed, Creighton as a 3 seed, and nobody else gets in.
Right.
So they're good enough to be top 3 seeds, but the conference is not good enough to get anybody else. So it's like, well, wait a minute. Does that diminish the value of UConn, Marquette, and Creighton? Because no one else from that conference got in. Like, there were some good teams. The Big East tournament was a great tournament. I mean, wow. Like, St. John's showed me a lot, right? They really battled UConn, an excellent UConn. And St. John's really battled them. Seton Hall is one of 3 teams that beat UConn all year. Like, in reality, who else did UConn lose? Lost to Creighton. They lost like one other Big East game, and escapes me who they lost to. And then they lost a true road game.
Didn't Seton Hall beat them?
Seton Hall,
I think somebody beat them early,
Yeah, so they shot the ball very poorly against Seton Hall and Creighton. Creighton hammered them. and they lost a true road game at Kansas in December, which is like such a difficult place to win anyway. So I think the Big East is a great conference. I thought the conference tournament was great. I mean, I don't know.
But
I'm stunned at who Providence should have got in. Also, I think. I mean, it was disappointing.
I watched a lot of the games, the conference tournament games, in different locations. The Big East tournament, it was sold out every single night,
Fantastic.
like every seat, right? And then you go to these other
Yeah,
conferences.
I wanted to go. I wanted to go. I couldn't
Mhm.
get a seat. I wanted to try to get tickets.
There's 10 people in the stadium. There's like the parents are sitting there, and that's it. And the band. It blows my mind. I don't get it. So from fans travel, I mean, the fans show up, for the Big East games. And you go to all these other tournaments, and it's just mind boggling that there's nobody there. And I don't know why they do it that way, but it's crazy. But
Yeah. So, like Northwestern gets in from the Big Ten. A 14-loss Michigan State got in.
yeah, that was bogus.
Wisconsin made a nice run at the end of the season. They got up to number 6 in the country, collapsed, rebounded, made a nice run, upset Purdue, 22-12. They got a 5 seed, like a 5 seed, because they got to the final of the Big Ten tournament, and yet St. John's played a fantastic game, getting to the semifinal, and they don't get in. I mean, I guess there were some bid stealers, right? You had like an Oregon,
Right,
Oregon
but see,
well,
there were bid stealers. There were bid stealers, but there were 3 teams that didn't deserve to be in that were in, and based on comparisons and these rankings that obviously mean nothing. What was that? What's the name of that one system that they use?
there's
Pars.
Palm is one of them.
Yeah, well, I don't, but it doesn't make any sense because why are they using it? They're trying, it's got strength of schedule, and it actually changes during the season. The strength of schedule changes based on teams if they get better or worse,
Right.
which good and bad that might be worthwhile. But all I could say is at the time of the games played, if a team beats a certain team, that's important. Now, the last game of the season tends to add too much value. So, for example, Seton Hall lost to St. John's. I saw that coming. I saw St. John's was on a roll. I didn't see them winning. I didn't think it was going to be that much of a blowout because that's probably the biggest thing. If Seton Hall had won that game, I would have thought they would have been in, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I read that even if they won that game, they probably wouldn't have gotten in based on what was going on. So I don't know, but there's no way possible St. John's should not have been in. Like I look at this and it's just a travesty. And normally I don't care about that stuff. But this year, and again, one of the teams I like is Virginia. But Virginia, they got slaughtered. They didn't deserve to be in the final in the field of 64. I could have told you that before it started.
Do you think it was an anti-Patino vote?
Oh, 100%.
They just didn't want him in.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know about Seton Hall. Why? And the Seton Hall thing kind of bothers me is because Shaheem Holloway was so good with St. Peter's, and I thought he's like one of the Cinderellas of the league, and they would have put him in there. I don't know. I feel bad for him because I would have loved to have seen, that team he has. They could at any given day they could beat anybody. Now they could lose to anybody too. Yeah. But they play such good defense that they would have been great. But I don't know. What can you do now? It's done and over. So I was thinking about this. I know we were talking back and forth. Why don't we do that? Why don't we give our Sweet 16 each, and then we could ask each other, hey, what made that happen? What was your upset along the way? Because I don't think we can go through all of us go through our entire bracket,
right?
Unless you want to do it quickly. I don't know. I mean, but I think going through the Sweet 16 is pretty interesting because that'll get us to a spot. Give us your Sweet 16. Give us your Final Four. And if you want to go for your champion now, and then we're going to come back and revisit this, obviously. So who wants to go first? This is putting our reputations on the line.
Exactly.
And
integrity.
But none of us really have ever been that good. Historically, my wife has been better at picking this than me. So I'm like you say, I don't think either of the four of us has ever been that good. We've had good brackets, but we've never, because too many things happen. How do you even if you think you know what you're talking about, there's always unpredictable things that happen. That's the beauty of this tournament.
Yeah. So I'll start. So why don't we do this? I'll go through the 4 teams that I have in my East, and then we can talk about that, and you guys can go through your 4 teams in your East in the Sweet 16, right?
Okay,
And then we
there
can
you
go
go.
for each one. So
Okay.
for me, I wish this was a week ago, but my surprise pick through the tournament is going to be Auburn. I wish they didn't win the title, the SEC title, but they did. So I have UConn. I went chalk. I have UConn against Auburn, and I have Illinois against Iowa State. And I just didn't see anybody that was going to surprise anybody. I'm picking Drake over Washington State, but I just think Iowa State's really strong. I almost had them going to the finals, but that's my 4. No real surprises in the East bracket. So I kept it pretty chalky. So I have UConn against Auburn, and I have Iowa State against Illinois.
Okay, Mike, you go next.
Okay. I have Stetson upsetting. Absolutely. So I'm with you, Alex, on the top half. UConn and Auburn. I think Auburn's really good. I think they could face a challenge in the second round. San Diego State, UAB, winner of that game. San Diego State's got, I think, 4 of their top 6 players from last year's national championship finalist team there, and they're one of the Mountain West teams that got in. So that could be a tricky game in the second round, but I think Auburn's playing really well. So I have UConn Auburn in the Sweet 16, which could be a really great game. UConn, I think, got completely screwed with their bracket. Number 1 team in the country, overall number 1 in the tournament, and they got like the most brutal 2, 3, and 4 seeds that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
On the bottom half, I have one surprise. I do have Iowa State, who's one of the best defensive teams in the country, and absolutely dismantled Houston in a half-empty Kansas City arena last week in the Big 12 final. But then I went a little bit off the reservation. I'm actually picking BYU.
Really?
Through. Yeah, I think they shoot the ball really well. I think they're battle tested from playing in the Big 12 all season, which was a really great conference, probably the best conference in basketball. Again, right up there with the Big East probably. But I think they have a chance to just pull off an upset over Illinois. I love Illinois' guards. I think they're excellent. Shannon scored, I think, 40 in the semifinal, overwhelmed Wisconsin, but I'm going to go BYU, Iowa State. So I've got the 6 and the 2 there. So UConn, Auburn, BYU, Iowa State are my.
And I think BYU is going to struggle in the first round too. I have them winning, but I think they're going to struggle. Yeah, the Dukes. I think Duquesne's good, and I think they're going to give them a run for their money. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't upset
11-6 games are tough. They're the new 12-5.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so we have the same thing, except you have BYU, I have Illinois.
Yes.
Yep. All right.
Okay,
Bryan,
here's me. So I have UConn making it all the way up. I have San Diego State.
Okay.
I have UConn and San Diego State, and I have I have Duquesne. I have the Dukes. And I have Iowa State. So I made some changes there. I mean, from the first day I did it, but I like Duquesne from day one. I also like Morehead State a little bit too. I like Morehead State. So my big upset is a Morehead State beating Illinois. Now that's, is that going to happen? Who knows? But I think that can happen. We'll see.
Phil Simms isn't there anymore,
I know Phil Simms is not there anymore.
But
I just think that yeah. So I don't know. I saw like a snippet on a YouTube video about Morehead State. I don't know. Who knows? But I just figured I always like to pick one or two that could go either way. And in reality, I don't think Illinois is going to go very far anyway. So we'll see what happens. So then it's UConn and Iowa State after those 4. So go ahead.
Okay.
So you can go to the next one.
All right. So let's do the South. We'll do the South bracket next. So this one I have as a mess because I don't think Houston's any good. I even struggled with this one with teams that I moved through. So I picked Texas A&M and Duke because I'm a Dookie, and Mike knows that. And I think Duke has maybe the easiest road to the Sweet 16. They got to beat Vermont, and then I think JMU is going to beat Wisconsin. So I think they're going to have to beat JMU, which may be a tougher game than if they played Wisconsin. So I have Texas A&M and Duke, Texas A&M beating Houston, and then I have Texas Tech and Marquette. And I don't.
Wow.
Yeah. So I like Marquette. I think they have an easy road through. And watched a lot of them in the Big East tournament, and just kind of drawn to that team. So like what they're doing. So and Texas Tech, I don't know that much about, but I don't like Kentucky. So and I think NC State's exhausted after 5 straight wins to win the ACC tournament. So I'm going to go with Texas Tech, Marquette, Texas A&M, and Duke. So a 9, a 4, a 6, and a 2.
Oof. Yowza. All right. We are almost completely different here. But I felt the same way. I've been erasing this bracket, like this South region, for like 4 hours. I'm not crazy about Houston either. I think they just struggle to score for very long stretches, but I do think Texas A&M would give them a tougher game than Nebraska. Again, it's a Big 12 team. Wait, is it? No, Texas A&M is an SEC team. That's right. I can't keep track of all these teams moving around. But I have Houston in the Sweet 16.
And Texas A&M's very athletic.
Yeah. Buzz Williams, yeah, former Virginia Tech guy.
Yeah.
But I'll go with Houston. I just think they can slow the pace enough and score enough to get through a couple of rounds. So I have Houston in the Sweet 16. This next group of 4 was really tough for me. I was like, I got to pick some upsets somewhere. So I've actually got James Madison coming through here. I watched Duke play a few times. I'm just not a fan of Duke. I watched them play 3 or 4 times. I really like Kyle Filipowski. I don't think they get enough from Jeremy Roach. I know this team is loaded with talent, but I just don't see how they can score consistently. And James Madison, I think, has been really good all year. They started off 17 or 18-0. They've won 31 games. I think being able to win 30 games, regardless of the conferences, is saying something. They've got some veterans, so I had to push someone through. So I've got Houston, James Madison, so a 12 seed in the Sweet 16. And then on the bottom half, I agree with Marquette. Tyler Kolek has been out for like the last 6 games with an oblique injury. They still made a run, though, to get to the final there. Cam Jones really stepped up this game.
Good.
So if they can get Kolek back and healthy, I think they've kind of elevated their game. So I see them fairly comfortably getting through to the Sweet 16, like fairly easily, because Florida in that Auburn game, I don't know if you saw the beginning, but their center broke his ankle very early in the game.
Oh my God, it was terrible.
Oh, it was an awful injury. Like this arena was silence. I feel terrible.
There was blood.
It was a mess. It was just awful. Yeah. And he's their leading rebounder. So I think they lose some depth in their front line. So I think Florida's got enough to get through there. But I think Marquette kind of cruises into the Sweet 16. And then I have Kentucky. They're so young and they're so up and down, but this bracket is such that I did go with Kentucky. I love this guy that they have, Rob Dillingham, who's comes off the bench. I think he plays 23 minutes a game, scores 15 points a game. He's like the 2.0 version of Vinnie Johnson, the microwave. And they've got a lot of guys that can score. They've got a lot of different players that play a ton of minutes. They're second in the country in scoring offense. 5 guys are scoring in double figures. And they've got probably the best shooter in the country, Reed Shepherd, whose father, Jeff Shepherd, played at Kentucky. This guy's shooting 52% from the 3-point line and absolutely lit up Tennessee a couple of weeks ago on the road. So they could be a little bit sloppy because they almost gave away this Tennessee game. They were up like 15 with 2 minutes left, practically gave the game away. But I'm just not crazy about the other teams in this bracket, so I think Kentucky could actually make a run. So I've got Houston, James Madison, Kentucky, and Marquette.
Interesting. So I like James Madison, but that's more because I have friends. My close friends Andrew and Brad went to James Madison, and they played football there, and I always root for them whenever they're playing. But I do feel that they're gonna definitely win one game, but I have Texas A&M and Duke, and so that's that one. I have Houston winning the first, but then I have again I'm looking at Texas A&M versus Houston, and I figure that's a tough one. But I really think I like Texas A&M. I've seen them a couple times. I like them. Again, I don't dislike Houston, and that was a real hard one for me. I went back and forth on that one a couple times, but so I have Texas A&M and Duke, and then so down the other group I have. I'm a big fan of Marquette. I like Marquette a lot. I think they're a lot better than people realize. So and again, I know they're a two seed, but I think they deserve. I don't know. They could have been a one. But I don't know where they would have been a one. But anyway, but I have them against Texas Tech. So I have Texas Tech beating Kentucky. Now again, what's funny too is I
You
actually like NC State a little bit. But I don't think they're going to be able to beat Texas Tech. NC State got a bad, like they could have beat a lot of teams, but I don't think they're right. But I have Texas Tech going in my Sweet 16. Again, I could be totally off on this one, but I like them.
so we
So
have the same four, right? Texas A&M, Duke, Texas Tech, and Marquette,
oh, we do.
right?
Okay,
So
okay.
yeah. Okay.
Look at
So
that.
what do you think does Cam Jones remind you of Jimmy Butler?
A little bit, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a
right.
little bit.
Who's a
Yeah,
Like
Marquette guy?
watching him in the
Jimmy
Big East
Butler's a
tournament, it's
Marquette.
just like this
Yeah.
guy wants the ball, right? He's gonna make a move. He just, I just, well, I didn't know anything about him. I watched him a couple times during the regular season, but in the Big East tournament, he just seemed like he was the man. And he's like, it seems like he's that kind of player that can carry a team for a couple games in a tournament. So,
Yeah.
but Marquette always seems to drop the ball in the tournament.
I
I
loved them
know.
last
Yeah,
year.
But
I
but I
loved them
think
last year, and they let me down. Yeah.
I know. So, all right, we'll see. All right, so next I'm going to go to the Midwest,
okay.
and I
Go ahead.
only have one surprise here.
I
Well, I
can't
have two
wait.
surprises. One, I picked Purdue to get here. I don't know how, but they just don't have to play anybody. So
Mm-hmm.
I have Purdue getting to the Sweet 16. I have them against McNeese. So
That's what
this
I
is my
have, Alex.
upset pick.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I have. That's so hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay,
Fair. Off
So
and
this is
on.
my
okay.
upset pick, yeah. And then I have in the bottom Crichton, who I don't believe in. I mean, I know they're a Big East team; they always lose big games, um, but again, I don't see who's going to beat them because you got the Rick Barnes curse, and you know I don't know. So I have Crichton and I have Tennessee. So I know Mike, I got the curse getting to the Sweet 16, but Purdue, McNeese, Crichton, and Tennessee. And I don't have a lot of faith in Crichton getting there, but and I threw a flyer on McNeese, but I think they're going to be an underdog team, and I think they can beat Kansas. I mean, I don't think that Gonzaga is good enough this year. I'm actually surprised they got a 5, and I think they can beat Kansas. And I know Kansas is your team, Mike, and I know they're on the down this year, so I'm hoping they can pick them off. Purdue, McNeese, Crichton, Tennessee.
All right, this one's a mess for me too. I actually did pick Purdue. Same reason. I just don't think any of these other three teams can beat them. And this Purdue team is better. Their backcourt is a little bit
Much
more
better.
experienced. So last year
Yeah.
they had Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer as freshmen, and they could not make a shot in that game, and you could see them tensing up
Right.
last year.
Jason
Zach
Tatum
Edey,
style.
yeah, exactly. Only in the last 5 seconds of games. I don't know why he's taking shots. That's a whole other podcast. Don't get me started on that. I don't want that guy taking shots at the end. But anyway, I digress. So Zach Edey, I think, is absolutely dominant. The thing I've observed with Zach Edey is when he goes to the bench, whether it's foul trouble or just to get him a rest, teams just attack the rim, which I think is a great strategy when he's out of the game. But when he's in, nobody's getting near the basket. He's had a great season. He's shooting his free throws much better down the stretch as well. And that I think kind of led them to at least get to the Big Ten semifinal in the conference tournament. So I do like Purdue to get this far at least because I would be shocked if they can't beat Utah State or TCU in the second round. I also have McNeese State, and I'll explain why.
Really?
I'm not too crazy about Gonzaga. McNeese is 5th in the nation in scoring defense. They're coached by Will Wade. I was watching them play in their conference championship game, and they've got a ton of guys that play. They've got 10 guys that play at least 12 minutes a game. Shahad Wells is their best player. He averages 18 points a game. They've got this 6'6" guy, Christian Shumati, who averages nearly a double-double. It's like 12 points and 9 rebounds a game. And I'm watching this game, and I had not seen McNeese State play previously. And I said, who is that coach? He looks really familiar. And so Quinn looks up. He's like, oh, it's Will Wade. I'm like, the LSU coach, who did a great job at LSU until he got fired for all sorts of recruiting scandals. So it's his first season there, and they've got 30 wins. The competition they play is awful if you look at their conference.
Yeah.
However, you've got to get some upsets in this tournament. A team with 30 wins is going to feel good about themselves. Will Wade has been there before.
He can cheat with the best of them.
What's that?
He can cheat with the best of them.
Exactly. So, yeah, in 2 years he'll be gone, because how the heck did he turn McNeese State around so fast, right?
Well, you can pay players now, so it's not a problem anymore.
And I have them I have them in the Sweet 16 beating Kansas. So Kansas is really depleted. Hunter Dickinson will be back for the tournament, so I think that gets them past Samford. But losing Kevin McCullough Jr., who really hasn't played much or practiced at all in the last 6 weeks, that's kind of coincided with Kansas's slide down the standings of the Big 12 and their blowout loss to Cincinnati in the Big 12 tournament. So I think getting them as a 4 seed is a blessing for Purdue, because I think Kansas is completely depleted. So Purdue, McNeese State at the top. This bottom half, I have Creighton going through, and actually we'll get to this later, but I have Creighton making a run because I just hate this entire region. Oregon to me is like a sneaky team. Like, they've gotten into the tournament in the past as a low seed, and they're the dreaded 11 seed. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Oregon make the run here, but I'm going to go with Creighton. And then, because it's Rick Barnes, and no matter how much I think Dalton Connect is a great scorer, I'm picking Colorado State. I'm not picking Purdue and Tennessee to get to the Sweet 16. So I've got Purdue, McNeese, I've got Creighton, and I've got Colorado State. So I've got a 10 seed and a 12 seed in my Sweet 16 in this awful region.
That's interesting. Okay, so it looks like Grambling is going to be in. You think Purdue can beat Grambling? I'm sure. Okay. So I have in my, Mike, I hate to say this, but I have Samford beating Kansas.
It could happen. It totally could happen.
I know, and that's a very popular bet right now. So I don't know if that's something that Las Vegas kind of like is pushing because they want people to bet on Stanford, but then knowing that Kansas is going to win. But I think Stanford's going to win. I'm not a big fan. Like Gonzaga, I think they have let us down so many times over the last couple of years, where we really thought that they would go further and then they would choke.
So they're not as good this year.
No, and they're not. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So they're not this year, and so I don't think they're going to surprise us here. It's not going to happen. So that's why I picked McNeese too. So I have Purdue and McNeese coming out from that section. I do have Purdue going through. I do feel that they've been around for a couple years. I am not high on them either. I think that at any given day, any team can beat them, which is bad for a team that's supposed to be a powerhouse. I don't think they are. I think they're a one-trick pony. But anyway, that's that. Down below, I have Creighton and Texas. And I went back and forth on that. So I like Creighton too a lot. I like Creighton a ton. I had a couple, again, I had obviously Creighton Akron. It's funny because what if Akron comes in and upsets them? But who knows? I have South Carolina beating Oregon, which I think that was one that I don't think, maybe, I don't know. Again, I've heard different things. I'm not a master at this, but I also have, with Rick Barnes, I have St. Peter's beating Tennessee. So I just think,
really,
yeah, I just think the pressure is going to be on them, and I think St. Peter's is just riding. I don't know. But who cares? I think at that point it doesn't matter. But either way, Texas would have beaten Tennessee. So that's why I picked Texas going. So I have Creighton, Texas, which I don't. It's a little bit different than yours, but it's funny. All three of us picked McNeese. What is the odds of that? I mean, because
Yeah.
that's a pretty big upset.
Yeah. And St. Peter's is, the New Jersey school that could, turn everything on its head, which happens every year, right? Seems like a small New Jersey school. I thought it was going to be Princeton this year. Princeton did so well in the Ivy League. I think they were undefeated in the Ivy League. They go in the tournament, they lose in the semifinals, and they're out.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they had such a good year. And I was going to pick. I'm like, a week before, I'm thinking, oh, that's one team I'm really going to follow. That's when I, narrowed it down. Auburn and Princeton were the two teams. I'm like, these are going to be my upset teams. And then Auburn goes on and wins it, and Princeton loses. And I'm like, oh, great.
But none of us had much faith in Yale, really. I mean, I don't have that much faith in Yale.
No, I just think Princeton was, they had a great year, and that's what stinks about, regular season. And if you don't win your postseason, then you're out. That's it. Historically, the Ivy League never had a postseason, right? I think they were the last. They were the last conference to go to a postseason tournament. They just said the regular season winner should go, but the money drives it, right? And so
we should do a bracket with these exact same teams, but do the math decathlon, and then which of these would like who would win between who's Gonzaga versus McNeese State? Who's going to win? Who's better at math?
Or gator wrestling or something.
Just to see, what do they do in their spare time after this? Maybe they have, because it's funny, but remember back in the day, if you remember back in the day when teams would play in these little side tournaments, the rest of the colleges would also get together and they would do other sports too. I don't know if you remember that. I remember seeing that when I used to go see either Georgetown or Virginia games, and they like let's say if they were playing, they would do a wrestling match. They would have a wrestling match with the same teams, so it'd be cool if they had or ping pong. Yeah, they would have ping pong match between Georgetown and Virginia. It was just cracking me up because they were in town, or maybe they would save money on the bus trip. They put everybody in the same bus.
Well, I didn't realize it, but they have like a whole managers tournament. Did we talk about that last time?
Yeah, they do. That's right.
Yeah, like the managers for the teams whenever they go, right? So let's say Georgetown's playing Villanova. The managers, they have a game beforehand. And I guess there's a whole league and there's rankings and everything for it. So I can't remember if we talked about that. I don't know where I heard that from, but I saw it, online the other day, and I was reading more about it. It's pretty interesting how they have rankings. It's a serious thing. I'm like, wow. But so let's look at the West.
So
let's go to the West. The West is an interesting one for me. And this is the funny thing is, like, I always, okay, the next 2 days. Right there, these are two of my favorite days in sports. Right, they are of the whole year. I try to watch as many games as I can. I will take my lunch hour and I'll go to I'm gonna go. I do it all the time. I'll go sit and watch some games for an hour just to see the craziness. I just love that craziness. But which bracket do you feel that is going to have the best games? That's not, after we're done. Let's talk about that. But go ahead, Alex. Okay. I'm curious to see who you pick here.
So the West, I'm pretty chalky in, but I have one upset. So I have North Carolina, who I hate. Mike, I'm surprised that wasn't on your list of teams I hate. I have North Carolina going through, and my upset is I'm going to have Charleston in the Sweet 16. So College of Charleston, they've been in the tournament back-to-back years. And they've performed very well in the CAA. They were top of the division most of the year of my alma mater Drexel right behind them. But Charleston and North Carolina in the Sweet 16. I'm not giving a lot of credence to St. Mary's. I think St. Mary's would be a heavy favorite over Charleston, but hopefully they can use the speed that they've played with all year and get past them to win. And then in the bottom, I have Baylor and Arizona. I think Arizona has a pretty easy, they'll have to get by Nevada, but I think they have a pretty easy path all the way. So I don't want to give away anything there, but I'm going to take Baylor and Arizona. So North Carolina, Charleston, Baylor, Arizona.
All right. I actually did think about putting Carolina into your Final Four, Alex. I was like, he's a Dookie, so you must not like Carolina. I have Carolina here. I've watched them play a few times this year. I actually like this team a lot, and I kind of like them for this bracket. Not to give anything away, but I've got Carolina. This other little group of four. I don't think any of us are, or at least Alex and I, are not fans of Alabama. So
No.
I actually have St. Mary's squeaking through, one of the better defensive teams in the country. Not a fan of Alabama, so I have St. Mary's getting through. That's assuming they can get by the Grand Canyon Lopes. So I have Carolina.
And they get to play in the West,
yeah,
which is helpful.
yeah. It's in Spokane. It's like they're probably playing at Gonzaga's Arena. So I got North Carolina and St. Mary's. And the bottom half, I have Arizona as well. And then I have my upset here. I have the University of New Mexico.
Oh, so the Lobos.
One of the Mountain West teams. This came in 6th place in the Mountain West, but they've got some good wins. They beat San Diego State twice. They beat Colorado State twice. They beat Nevada twice, and they beat Utah State as well. So they've got a lot of scores here. Familiar name, Jamal Mashburn Jr. is on this team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they've got a lot of talent. They've got this guy Donovan Dent, who averages 14 points a game, probably an NBA prospect. They've got a Toppin on their team. JT Toppin is on this team, averaging.
Is it one of Obi's little brother?
No relation.
I don't know. He must be.
No relation.
No relation. Toppins.
No relation.
How many Toppins are there? So I think between Jalen House, Jamal Mashburn, and Donovan Dent, you've got 3 guys on that team that can score 20 each. So they score 82 points a game as well, coached by another familiar name, Richard Pitino. So a Pitino did get into the tournament, just not the one we expected.
Right.
So I think they can get past Clemson. I saw Clemson play a couple of times. They're a little bit inconsistent. They rely heavily on this guy, PJ Hall, who's a pretty good player, actually, for Clemson, like a big guy that plays inside out. And I think they could pull off an upset in round 2 against Baylor or Colgate. Probably Baylor, but you never know. I think Colgate's made it to the tournament like 3 years in a row. So I've got UNC against St. Mary's and New Mexico against Arizona.
Pretty good. And New Mexico was one of those teams that were saying stole a spot from the Big East teams. They were saying they were surprised they got in.
Hey,
the Lobos.
So I have a question. Grand Canyon University.
Yeah.
It's a gospel-centered university, which I don't understand what that means. But they sing all the time. It's a singing college.
It just popped up too.
Where is it? Where is it?
Isn't it a for-profit college?
It's a gospel-centered university. It says on it.
Is that what
gospel-centered?
But all their sports are good. Like their football team is good.
Where are they located?
I think they renamed a college. It used to be something else.
Trump University.
It's not in the Grand Canyon, and it's so. Okay, well, yeah, there's nothing there except for this college. There's nothing around. It's hot and everything. No.
Dan Marley used to coach them, Brian.
Grand Canyon.
Yeah, Dan Marley used to coach Grand Canyon, and now they're coached by Bryce Drew. So they're now coached by the brother of the Baylor coach, Scott Drew.
It's interesting. I'm curious about that game now, but
it's in Prescott, Arizona, 1949.
Prescott, Arizona. I've never heard of them. Okay, well,
they
must not have They must have not had any big runs in the tournament before. I don't know. Okay, so I'm not picking them. So I just was curious about that.
All that for nothing.
Yeah, all that for nothing. I have North Carolina and St. Mary's. I know. I went with North Carolina. I don't know why. I hate North Carolina. I did. I would love to see.
Is Baycott in like his 7th or 8th year there?
Yeah, he's 30 years old. But that other guy, I don't know if you saw him, that guard, Cormac Ryan, that plays for them. If you watch the Duke game, he hit, I think, like three or four threes early for him. He's 25 years old. He's in like his 3rd or 4th college.
Crazy.
Yeah, just
transfer portal.
That's weird stuff. And I have New Mexico and Dayton. So
Dayton.
I like Dayton. You know what? Dayton got robbed the year the COVID year. They haven't been back since. They haven't really been back since then, have they? And so I like them. I always like them. So I have them going fairly far. But Yeah, I have North Carolina, St. Mary's, New Mexico, and Dayton. And I like New Mexico because of Pitino's son too. That is definitely something that he. And it's funny how, even though he didn't get in, he spent most of the time talking about his son, which I thought was really cool. I thought that
Yeah.
he could have been the other way around. He really spent all his time. Um, so
So let's do Final Four now, Brian.
yeah,
So
Final
why
Four
don't
is
you
just
start with
interesting.
your
Me, you want mine? Okay, okay. Let's
yeah.
be. You want to hear my Final Four? Here you go. Okay, hold on. Let me just. I gotta scroll up where I have them. Okay, my Final Four are UConn, St. Mary's, Marquette, Creighton.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. So Big East, basically a Big East, 3 of the 4, Big East.
Yeah, do you believe
Oh,
that?
Wow.
like what was that? What was that? 85 when it was Georgetown, Villanova, and St. John's,
And
Yeah.
St. John's, yeah.
And
Yeah.
who was the fourth team? You guys remember who the fourth team was in that final?
Memphis State.
Hey, all right, this guy.
Yeah, and
Memphis
who was their best player?
Keith Lee.
Yeah, with the dread, with the
Yeah.
Jerry curl.
Jerry
Yeah,
Curl, yeah. Oh,
Terrible
yeah.
NBA player, unfortunately.
Yeah.
no, not a good NBA player. He got hurt so early in his career. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
basketball.
that was a great Final Four too. I mean,
That was.
Yeah.
okay. So a lot of Hall of Famers in that play.
All
Okay,
right. So
so
you have
that
3 Big East. So
UConn, St. Mary's, Marquette, Creighton.
you're
Yeah.
giving the big middle finger to the selection committee, Brian. That's your.
Well, look what
process.
I already. Yeah, I mean they picked Virginia. They can't be that good.
All right. Here's mine. I'm going to take Purdue, Marquette,
Mm.
Auburn, and Arizona.
Ooh.
Wow. There's the upset. There
Yep,
is.
there's the upset. I mean, it's hard to go back to back, and
Yeah.
I wish that Auburn didn't win
Mhm.
their tourney, because I think that this would be kind of their time to shine. But I still want to play them through. I think they have a great backcourt. They have a great coach. He likes to cheat too,
Yeah.
and
Former Tennessee coach.
former Tennessee coach, where was he before Tennessee too? He got in trouble somewhere before that.
Oh, yeah.
I forget. Anyway, so I have Auburn, Arizona, and Marquette and Purdue.
Nice.
All right. I've got
What do you-
UConn. That is, I think it's a brutal bracket, but they're so good. Like watching them play, they're one of the best teams I've seen in years. Like I can't really find a flaw with that team, and I think the physicality of Auburn is not going to intimidate UConn at all. So I see UConn coming through. I've got them in the Final Four. I've got North Carolina in the Final Four as well. I think RJ Davis is just playing at a really high level. They're getting some good minutes from Cormac Ryan. I think they need more from Bacot. I think he just seems to disappear for stretches. And I think being that I'm pretty sure it's his final year in college, finally, I think this is his chance to kind of finish strong, get to the Final Four. They have a pretty solid point guard in Elliot Cadeau as well. So I don't think they defend great. They're not great at defending ball screens, and that's where Bacot is a liability for them a bit as well. But I think they've got enough to get through. I actually have them beating Arizona in the regional final, which would be an interesting matchup because Caleb Love, who played for Carolina last year, is the starting point guard now at Arizona. So it'd be like a matchup of R.J. Davis and Caleb Love. But I've got UConn, Carolina on one side of the bracket, and then on the other side, I didn't like anything going on this side of the bracket. I have Kentucky coming through.
Ooh.
I'm putting a lot of faith in all of these freshmen they've got, and for Calipari to finally pull it all together. It's been a while since he's gotten this team to the Final Four, but I really like Marquette, but they kind of let me down last year, and I think a lot of it hinges on Tyler Kolek's health. And since I don't know how healthy he's going to be, I've got Kentucky sneaking through the Final Four, and then I could not pull the trigger on Purdue, so I've also got Creighton in the Final Four as well.
Wow.
I think they shoot the ball really well. I think they could go out really early, Creighton.
Yeah, that's what I worry
totally
about.
Can. I think I had Marquette in the Final Four last year, and I think they shockingly went out early. But I think Creighton's got a lot of veterans. They've got a big body, so I think they've got someone that can kind of match up a little bit with Zach Edey. So They've got Ryan Kalkbrenner. He's 7-1, scores 17.5 a game. So I think he can present a bit of a matchup challenge for Zach Edey. Baylor Shireman scores 18 a game. They've got a really solid point guard in Trey Alexander that scores 17 and averages 5 assists. They don't have a lot of depth, though. That's my one concern. If they get into some foul trouble, they're really just 7 players deep. So that's my one area of concern. But Purdue's also got this concern with Braden Smith, their point guard. He's a little bit hobbled as well. So this bracket's a little bit of a mess. And so I kind of snuck Creighton through. So Creighton, Kentucky, oof. And then UConn, Carolina, a couple blue bloods on the other side.
Shaka Smart, baby. Put the money on Shaka Smart.
I'd like to see it, but a Kentucky Marquette game would be fun to watch.
Yeah.
So I think this is awesome. I think what we'll do is we will come back around the Sweet 16 time. Do you want to see who you want? Do you want to give your prediction on who you think is going to win it now?
Oh yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Who's
your
UConn
champion?
Beating Kentucky. So I've got UConn repeating. Very daunting task, as Alex said. Very hard to repeat. Hasn't happened since, I guess, Florida. Was that 2004, 2005, which was a fantastic team. And I do think UConn's got such a hard bracket to get through. Alex has got them being upset by Auburn, which could totally happen. But every time I've seen UConn, I'm looking for a weakness, not finding it. They've been through it last year, and they've picked up a couple of pieces this year. I think Cam Spencer's been a great addition for them, the Rutgers transfer. Donovan Klingen's playing fantastic inside. I mean, he was a man among boys in the Big East final, and they got through a real gauntlet there in the Big East, and I think that's just going to steel them for a run. So I see them winning again. I think Danny Hurley is locked in on winning another title. They finally won the Big East first time since like 2011 or something, when they used to be in the Big East. And I think they've got a couple of newer players that weren't contributors or were not on the team last year that are really hungry to put their own stamp on UConn basketball. So I've got them beating the kids from Kentucky in the final.
Pretty cool.
I have Arizona and Marquette in the final, and I'm gonna choose Arizona to win it all. And it mostly has to do with their victories this year. So they beat Duke, they beat Wisconsin, they beat Alabama, they beat Utah twice. I just think they have great guard play, and they're balanced offense and defense, ranked top 15 nationally. So in both offense and defense, and they really spread the scoring around. So if anybody's cold on a given night, I think they can make it up with the other 4 guys. And it's just, I wanted Auburn, but I just didn't think they could go all the way after winning the SEC tournament. So I'm going Arizona over Marquette.
Nice,
interesting.
And so I don't think it's gonna come true, but
no, I mean,
I don't have a good feeling
about $1 million. Yeah, I mean, no one. I mean, how often does everybody pick a perfect bracket? It's almost impossible.
It's never.
So I have my final 2 are UConn against Marquette. I have Marquette winning.
Oh,
so
Big
I have
East
Marquette
Bryan.
winning. I am hoping.
That's your new name, Big East Bryan.
I am hoping for some health there, but I really like. Again, I didn't see. Like I only saw in live. I only saw like 3 games this whole year. Now, I did see obviously on TV. I did, but I'm saying I saw Marquette. I really liked them. I just something about them I really liked, and every time I've seen them, it hasn't changed. My mind has not changed. Again, I like Creighton a lot too, and I seriously thought about pulling Creighton into the final too. I thought it could have happened, but I like Marquette. So that again, I rarely ever pick this right, so it's not going to happen. But it's my choice.
You got to put it out there, baby.
Yep, you got it. I think this is awesome. This is the best time of year. The next 2 days are again, I don't know, because we can't say a World Cup stuff is because we don't have it every year. So when the World Cup comes into play, that's a pretty crazy time too. And I know that's a I think all 3 of us can admit that that's a time we always look forward to. And we probably get jazzed up.
So my son asked me tonight, would you rather watch March Madness or the World Cup?
That's a hard one.
It's a really
Well, because you know what? See, this is the whole thing about the Thursday Friday is there's no other sport where you have that many games that are important all
That's
the same
exactly
day.
what I said. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay.
exactly
Okay,
what I
good.
said.
So there you go.
That's what I said. Yeah, but I said after that, I would take World Cup.
Yeah, me too.
Once
I
it
would
gets to a regular, cadence
Yeah.
in the tournament, then.
Yeah.
But the
This
first few
is
days is just great.
but World Cup soccer, not World Cup cricket, right? Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's-
Football, World Cup football.
No, but I have to say these are probably my two favorite days of sports here, which is crazy, but it is. It's just
Yeah,
because you don't know what's going to happen, and again,
there's
yes,
always upsets.
it's muddied by NIL. It's muddied by all these stupid transfer portals. I have to say, college basketball did itself a disfavor by doing these things, but it also got everybody off their back that, it's not saving people. Like, is it keeping kids in college longer? I don't know. We'll see. I don't think so. You know,
I
they
mean,
have to find a way to keep kids in college more.
look, it's really it's. I don't see it as the NCAA. I mean, this was a legal thing, right? The NCAA fought it. They lost in court. That basically says, hey, you have to let them get paid if for their name and image and likeness. So the NCAA really didn't have much of a choice, right? They
I
could have
just
said,
wish
okay,
I
well,
wish that part of that whole thing was they get paid and they get a financial advisor, because so many of these kids, they're from what I hear stories about, like they come into school with their Lamborghinis and their chains and everything, and they spend all their money.
right,
Um, that's not what this was meant to be. It was meant to be to put some money aside for them, so in case they don't get a career. And I think that's the thing that people tend to miss in sports. A lot of these kids who grow into athletes think that they're going to have that money all their life.
right,
And guess what? They have it 2 years, or they get cut, or they go to the pros and they realize that, guess what? I'm as good as everybody else here that's trying out for this one spot, and I might not get it. And then I'm going to go to the G League, or I'm just going to have to go overseas. I'm not going to ever make this money again. Hopefully they put it aside. I don't think a lot of these kids are not smart enough to do that, though.
yeah, but to have Nick Saban testify in front of Congress how terrible it is, and it's changed all the stuff. It's like, give me a break, dude. You you made millions and millions and millions of dollars on all these kids'
Off all
backs
these kids,
for
yeah,
how
you
many
did, you did.
years? There needs to be a better way. Obviously, I mean, I think the NIL is one thing, the transfer portal is something else, right? Like, if all these players said, well, you can go play somewhere, but and if you sign NIL contracts, you have to stay for 2 or 3 years. That would be different than kids every year going in the transfer portal saying, well, whoever pays me the most, I'm going to go play. I mean, that seems a little wonky to me, or make them sit out a year. The NCAA just makes a rule that says you have to sit out a year, which they used to have. And, that's kind of unfair too, based on what the coaches do. But it just, I don't know. It just seems weird to me.
Well,
Yeah.
you talked, okay, so you guys talked before about that one Final Four with Georgetown and Villanova and St. John's and Memphis State. One of the most important things when you look at those rosters is a whole bunch of those were 4-year seniors.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
whole bunch of, like, that's, if you remember during that period of time, you got to watch these teams for 4 years. You had your favorites. You got to follow them. That's part of the thing I like. Now in college, every year I got to figure out who's on the roster now. Who are these
Yeah.
kids? And
Yep.
back then, you got to follow them and see them grow and become, like, that was part of the whole thing. And then when they were a team built with seniors, they were tough because they were like,
Well, that's how
people that would have been
Villanova's been
pros.
winning their. That's how Villanova was winning their championships with Jay Wright, right?
Yeah,
He had 3 and 4 year guys that stayed, that were 3-star guys that he coached up, coached up to win in college.
and he
And now they're
coached so
winning in
well.
the
They're winning
NBA.
in the pros. Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
amazing. And that's something that you don't think about. Like, I love the fact that they have so many Villanova people, and they play together, and they play basketball the right way, and they know what they're doing. And I was watching them,
yeah, they know the
play.
fundamentals.
They beat my Warriors the other night, and I'm like, it's hard for me to root against the Knicks. 'Cause I like them a lot too, but I was watching them, and I'm like, they play so well together. These guys, and obviously they played together now like 5 years together.
Yeah,
It's not, you can't make that up. They did that, and they know, Brunson knows what these guys are doing. He's played so much with them over the years. I love that. No, they're a fun team to watch.
They play for each other, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't say that about the Lakers. Like they're not playing for each other, right? They're playing for glamour and glitz, and they don't want to get yelled at by LeBron. But I think the Knicks are playing for
At least
each
they don't
other.
have man buns too, like D'Angelo Russell. I just can never root for a player that's in a man bun. Okay, and I think this is an amazing episode. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. We will have some follow ups along the way. I would definitely, if not after the next two, after this week, maybe next week we may even come back and talk a little bit more about, because there might be some crazy upsets. We'll decide what we're going to do, but definitely right before the Sweet 16, we'll talk and we'll see how we did, and then we'll see what goes. And we might have to repick. What if we get them all wrong? What if none of us get any teams in the Sweet 16?
Oh no, that would literally be an impossibility.
Okay, we'll see.
Sweet 16, yeah.
Grand Canyon, man. Grand Canyon's going to be there. You watch. Stetson, Grand Canyon, Stamford. Okay. So, okay, everybody, take care. Have a wonderful week.
Enjoy the tournament.